Richard Hayes was the man everyone envied. A self-made millionaire, a dream home in Los Angeles, a beautiful family by his side, and his name celebrated across the business world. To the public, he looked untouchable, the perfect picture of success. But what no one knew was that one hidden mistake from his past was about to surface. And in just one night, it would take everything away: his wealth, his family, and the empire he built from nothing. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't already, please do well to hit that subscribe button and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Richard Hayes was the kind of man people whispered about with admiration. At 38, he was a millionaire, a respected entrepreneur, and the picture of success. He had grown up poor in a small Ohio town, watching his father fix cars in a rundown garage and his mother work double shifts at a diner. Richard promised himself he would never live like that again. Through grit and ambition, he built a tech company from nothing. His innovations made him millions, and soon, his name was on the lips of investors across the country. He bought a mansion in Los Angeles, drove expensive cars, and wore tailored suits that made people look twice. His wife, Claire, seemed like the perfect partner, elegant, supportive, and always by his side at events. Their 2 children, Daniel and Sophie, were enrolled in elite private schools. To outsiders, Richard lived the dream. But in private moments, doubt often crept into his mind. He knew success attracted enemies, and he had made a few during his rise. Some old friends resented him. Former business partners whispered that Richard had stepped on too many toes to get where he was. Still, he brushed it off. He believed nothing could bring him down. The night it all began seemed ordinary. Richard attended a grand charity gala downtown. The room sparkled with chandeliers, and the air buzzed with wealth and power. People lined up to shake his hand, congratulate him on another successful deal, and even ask for advice. He smiled, confident, unaware that storm clouds were already gathering. After the gala, Richard received a call from an unknown number. He stepped away from the laughter and music, answering in a quiet hallway. The voice on the other end was sharp and cold. "We know what you did, Richard. If the world finds out, you'll lose everything." His blood ran cold. For years, Richard had hidden one terrible decision, a desperate move he had made in his early days to keep his company afloat. Back then, drowning in debt and facing bankruptcy, he had taken money from an investor whose business was less than clean. It had been a silent partnership, buried in false paperwork. He thought it was long forgotten. But someone had uncovered the truth. They threatened to expose him unless he wired $5 million by midnight. Richard's mind raced. He couldn't let this come out. His company, his reputation, his family's safety, all depended on silence. That night, Richard made a choice. Instead of giving in, he decided to fight. He called his lawyer, who urged him to come clean, but Richard couldn't imagine facing the humiliation. So, he prepared to meet the caller, determined to put an end to the blackmail himself. The meeting was set in a dimly lit parking lot on the edge of the city. Richard arrived in his black Mercedes, gripping the steering wheel tightly. A tall man stepped out of the shadows, wearing a hood and holding a briefcase. Richard expected a stranger. What he didn't expect was betrayal from within. When the hood dropped, his jaw nearly hit the ground. It was Marcus, his closest business partner and longtime friend. "You?" Richard whispered in disbelief. Marcus smirked. "I carried you when you were broke, Richard. And what did I get? Scraps. You took the glory, the spotlight, the millions. Now it's my turn." Richard's stomach turned. Marcus explained everything. He had proof of the dirty deal, copies of the papers Richard thought were destroyed. Worse, he had already tipped off reporters. The demand wasn't just about money. It was revenge. Before Richard could react, Marcus handed over a folder. Inside were photos, bank statements, and contracts that painted Richard as a fraud. "By morning," Marcus said, "your empire will burn." Richard rushed home, his hands trembling as he flipped through the damning evidence. Claire found him in his study, sweat on his forehead. He confessed the whole story, desperate for her support. But instead of comfort, he saw something in her eyes he hadn't expected: coldness. "How long did you think you could hide this from me?" she asked quietly. Richard froze. Claire knew. She had known for months. And now, as he begged her to stand by him, she revealed the unthinkable truth. She had already filed for divorce. Not only that, she had aligned herself with Marcus. Together, they had plotted his downfall. "You were too busy chasing money and fame to notice," she said. "Now you'll pay the price." That night, news broke. Headlines screamed, "Tech tycoon involved in fraud scandal." Richard's phone buzzed with hundreds of missed calls. Investors pulled out, the stock price of his company crashed, and social media erupted with outrage. In a matter of hours, the empire he built began collapsing. By the next morning, Richard's life was unrecognizable. His accounts were frozen, his company's board voted him out, and cameras surrounded his mansion like vultures. Former friends distanced themselves, his children were whisked away by Claire, and lawyers flooded his inbox. Everywhere he turned, doors slammed shut. Banks demanded repayment. Politicians who once courted his donations now denounced him. Even his parents, watching from their modest home in Ohio, couldn't believe the son they had been so proud of was at the center of such disgrace. Richard wandered through his empty mansion, memories flashing before his eyes: the first $1 million check, birthdays with his kids, anniversaries with Claire. All of it felt like a cruel joke now. He poured himself a drink and sat in silence, staring at the walls. He had gone from being a man who had everything to a man with nothing. And the world seemed glad to watch him fall. Weeks later, Richard stood outside a small motel, the only place he could afford. His suits were gone, his mansion sold, and his name dragged through endless lawsuits. Marcus had taken control of the company, and Claire lived happily in luxury, her betrayal complete. But as Richard looked into the cracked mirror of his motel room, he realized something. For the first time in years, he was free. The empire, the wealth, the fake friends, they were gone. All that was left was the man who once believed in hard work and honesty. He found a job at a local garage, fixing cars just like his father once did. The pay was small, but the work was real. Some days, people recognized him and mocked his fall from grace. Other days, no one cared who he was. Richard had lost everything in one night, but slowly, piece by piece, he began to rebuild a life that wasn't built on lies. Not riches, not fame, just truth. And for the first time, he thought, maybe that was enough. In the end, Richard Hayes learned a truth he had ignored for too long. Wealth can vanish, power can crumble, and even the closest people can betray you. But when the dust settled, he discovered something money could never buy: the chance to start over with nothing but his own two hands. He lost it all in one night. Yet in that loss, he found a different kind of freedom. Sometimes, falling from grace isn't the end, it's the beginning of something real.
If this story kept you watching till the end, don't forget to like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful stories just like this one.